Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is demanding to name OP's son. My Karen mother is demanding I name my baby following the family tradition. My wife and I, both in our late 20s, had our first baby together in June. Before he was born, there was a lot of talk about names from different family members on both sides, but the pressure to reveal the name was mostly on my side. We didn't tell a soul what the name would be until our son was born and we had left the hospital. My parents were disappointed when we announced our son's name. My family is very traditional when it comes to naming. Each of us was named after grandparents, and that's how they feel everyone should name their kids. My wife's family doesn't have any traditions when it comes to naming the babies. They just choose a name without much fuss or insistence on certain names. However, my wife's side tends to favor more uncommon and unusual names. My wife and I lean more towards her family's taste, which is how we ended up choosing the name Hollis for our son. This was not something my parents liked because they expected our son to be named either Jack, after my dad, or Parker, after my father-in-law. I know they were expecting a little Jack to be born, so that added to their disappointment. They quizzed us on our choice to break tradition, and I told them it wasn't a tradition my wife's family followed, and we decided not to follow it either. Over the last couple of months, both parents have questioned why we chose the name Hollis and have wanted to discuss other names for future babies. My mom has been the worst by far. She asked why we went with something so unlike the names we have in our family. I told her our family wasn't the only family involved and we didn't take family taste into account. We went with what we liked. She pointed out that our taste was a lot like my in-laws, and I said yes, but that it wasn't about my in-laws and their taste, it was about my wife and my taste. I told her that I was done discussing it, and since then, I now change the topic or end the conversation when she brings it up or refuses to let it go. We had a little naming ceremony on Saturday, and my mom decided she was going to dig in her heels about the name. She told me we had picked a stupid name, she hated it, and she wanted us to change it and name him Jack or Parker. She told me we had no business breaking a long-held tradition in our family, and there's a reason those traditions exist. So foolish people can't name their babies the worst names imaginable. She also said my in-laws must be so smug, thinking they'll have at least 2 stupidly named grandkids like they had all stupidly named grandkids. I lost my temper. I told her to shut it and accept the fact that we're not naming our kids like she and dad named me and my siblings. I told her that she would need to leave and learn to be more respectful because I wouldn't take those insults against my wife or her family lying down. My mom hated being told to shut it and said that I had no excuse for being rude to her face. I thought she was being unreasonable. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. If your mother wants to have a say in naming a baby, then she should have another baby. She was unnecessarily rude and disrespectful to you, your wife, your in-laws, and your kid. I'd seriously consider going no contact with her if she doesn't change her behavior, as your son will pick up on it as he grows up, and it's not acceptable to expose your family to her. Not the jerk. Tradition or not, this is your baby, and any future kids are yours too. No one gets to tell you what you should or shouldn't name your kid. You could say, well, parents, that was your tradition. We decided to start our own tradition as a family. Personally, I love the name Hollis. As for mom, unfortunately, this might be a deal breaker in going limited contact or no contact. You will have to set the example. Let your parents know right off the bat that calling your kid anything else than his name will not be tolerated. If they're at your place, you get up and show them the door. If you're at theirs, you get up and leave. Same with any outside venue or relative's home. If you're at relatives' homes who are on mom and dad's side, you can let them know your boundaries as well. Curious, what was the middle name? Because I actually like either father's name as a middle name. OP. Very low contact is being considered over this. It will depend on what the reaction after this is like and whether they stop or continue insulting our son's name and my in-laws and my wife and myself. We didn't use either father's name. We considered a few, but went with Cameron in the middle ultimately. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mom? Please let us know. I can't be the only one who thinks Hollis is a really cool name. Just be glad they're not naming you Karen. You don't want to know the crap I have to deal with. I, 28 female, found out that my husband, who's 29, has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. What do I do? My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have any kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We're both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events often, and I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with his friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough, and he asked me, "You're OP, right?" I think I must have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, "I'm Jake. I work with Josh." I realized that I had recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere. But we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look in his photos sometimes. Don't hate me for that. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking to me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep. But while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time, I was confused, but I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker Jake. Not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought, no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty. He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This is relevant, I promise. And was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog and goes, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him, apparently, so I guessed that the guy was another colleague of Josh's because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister, walking his dog for him?" I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first, so I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog." I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just so awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I seriously don't know what to do because what's going on? Do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister, and evidently that they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I've only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to time to plot his downfall because she's my ride or die. I love her. But I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. Edit. Josh came home at about 2:30 a.m. last night, but he was drunk, so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because having the conversation in that state wouldn't have been good. I just woke up, but he's still sleeping. First thing, I just want to clear something up. I've seen a lot of people suggesting that I have crippling social anxiety or I'm severely introverted, but I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted and that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance bros whose weekends consists of unending sports bar beers, where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Probably a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse, and that I'm quite laid back, and I prefer to have a conversation easy and positive. I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting when people misrecognize me is one of those things, but I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It's only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that I don't get lost, but I'll do my best not to let him slither out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the theatrical confrontation you guys were hoping for, but it's a Saturday, and I can't wait. Does he not wear a wedding ring to work? Why does he need to hide the fact that he's married? Sorry, OP, but this would send me into a tailspin. Find out as much as you can before confronting him. So, he's either having an affair at work or keeping his options open. Neither is good. I think you're underreacting here. There's literally no good reason he has told all of his coworkers that you're his sister. I'm really sorry. You could choose to ask him why, or you could just leave. The fact that over the past 3 years, he's worked with these people every day, hangs out with them outside of work, they know your dog, but they don't know you're his wife, that's a flaming red flag to me. 3 years, and they believe you're his sister. 3 years of conversations where your so-called husband has never corrected them. So it makes me wonder, what are they doing during these hangouts? The fact that one of his colleagues tried to hit on you because he thought you were your husband's sister is wild. OP, don't go easy on this man. I would be fuming if this was my partner. The sheer audacity. I'd be making a surprise lunch visit where I make sure to let everyone know I'm Jake's wife. It's so great to meet you. And then seriously reconsider if this marriage is the one you want. The marriage you're proud of. He said it for a reason, and it was to play single bachelor. You deserve better. I, 23 female, and my husband, 23 male, are unsure if we should get a divorce. Any advice is appreciated, plus updates. I'm going to try to make a timeline of events in our relationship for context. We met and started dating back when we were in middle school. He cheated on me when we were 15 or 16. At this point, we were on again, off again, which continued until we were 17. I got a full ride to university across the country for athletics and academics when I was 18. My first and only semester there, I hated it. I hated the team and the coaches, and I had no friends. He flew out to visit me, and we got engaged at 18 years old. He flew back a little over a month later, and we had a courthouse wedding. I came home after the semester had finished. He was 18 and I was 19 when he joined a very difficult and prestigious branch of the military. He left for 3 months for training, which was difficult, but we did fine. He came back for a few weeks and then left for a few more months for school for his particular job. During this time, I would later find out, he signed himself up on Bumble and paid over $50 in upgrades for more swipes. He insists he never met anyone from it and no conversations that he had were ever anything more than introductions. He also, again, I found out a few years later, spent over $600 at a dance club. He said that he was pressured by seniors to go and ended up paying for a VIP room for one of his buddies because he got the room and then didn't have the money to pay for it, and my husband said his friend was going to get in trouble. That weekend, he would go up and down the coast going to various clubs and another dance club from what I've gathered. At 19, we moved states and got our first house together. At 20, he deployed. This would be a very difficult time in our lives and even more difficult after he got home. He became hooked on watching a certain type of content. He came home 6 months later and we were okay, except I noticed after a few weeks that as soon as he came home from work, he would practically beeline it to the bathroom and shower for 45 plus minutes. I did my best to ignore it until one day I saw a charge on our account for $30 to someone with a very interesting name. I confronted him and he immediately looked away, took in a deep breath, brushed his hand through his hair, and sputtered out a quick excuse that it was his buddy's wife who bought them all lunch during work. I don't know why, but I said okay and left it at that. He got up a few minutes later saying he felt sick and went to go lay down. I got a text from him an hour later saying he was sorry and that he sent money to a girl for her premium Snapchat or something like that. He says he felt so guilty he didn't even look at anything and he deleted her right after he sent the money. I realized that the day this transaction took place, he had bought me flowers. He had never done that before, not even on any special occasions. From here on, the dates get confusing for me. I don't remember what happened first, or when, or how far apart, but I'll do my best to include as much information as I remember. Sometime later, maybe weeks, maybe months, I woke up to a message from an old acquaintance on a certain social media. I think we were still 20 or maybe 21. I don't remember what exactly she said, something along the lines of, "I just wanted you to know that your husband said this to me," something like that. He had messaged her the night prior whilst drinking at a friend's house down the road that he loved her and missed her. I wished so badly I could remember more, but for some reason I can't. I know she said something like, "You can't be saying this, you're married," and he said something along the lines of, "I don't care." I screamed at him to wake him up, but he was still drunk. I told him I wanted a divorce. I locked myself in the bathroom. I don't know how much time passed. When he opened the door, he said he didn't send those messages. He said that he left his phone plugged into the speaker and his friend was using it to play music. He said his friend must have seen the girl's story and messaged her. He even pulled out his phone with proof, a text conversation between him and his friend confirming that the friend had messaged her and said he was sorry. I don't know why, but I believed him immediately. I remember having the most euphoric feeling of, I don't even know what the word is, but whatever you feel when you let out a breath you've been holding and say, "Oh, thank goodness." I'm getting frustrated writing this because I'm realizing how much I'm forgetting and I feel like I'm missing something. At 21, I think crap hit the fan. I think at this point, I had gone through his phone several times and I found his internet history. One night, I went through his entire bank account history since 2018 and I found the charge for the dance club and for Bumble. He said the Bumble charge wasn't him, it was a senior who used his card because his had been frozen or something ridiculous like that. I, of course, believed him. I don't know why. I can't remember at what point I found out that he lied about messaging the girl on social media. I think it was after I had looked through his phone again and I found text messages between him and his friend that was the one who allegedly sent the message. His friend said something like, "Bro, I can't even go to parties that your wife is at because she hates me," or something like that. But they both confirmed what I didn't want to believe. My husband had taken my phone, deleted the messages sent to me by the girl, and got his friend in on this elaborate story. I can't remember when I found out that he did in fact download and pay for upgrades on Bumble. I think I just knew at this point he was lying and grilled him long enough that he relented. He said he never met anyone or anything, and he said during the conversation, "I only paid for the upgrade because no one would ever swipe on me," or something like that. I can't remember at what point we went to legal on base and got information to file for divorce. I had never seen him cry before besides one other time. After we got married, at the airport, he cried so hard that he wouldn't let me see. He just hugged me. He said he didn't want to leave, but he cried constantly after I told him this was it and that I had an appointment and paperwork filled out to file for divorce. I had never seen him like this before, constantly saying he was sorry, deleting every social media account he'd ever owned, crying at the drop of a pin, saying things like he will never marry again, I could have everything in our savings, he'd pay for me to finish college if that's what I wanted. I relented and we went to marriage counseling. He stepped up a lot. He was never on his phone anymore, would keep his phone unlocked and face up on the table, told me that I could go through it anytime I asked. He even started cleaning the house and making dinner before I got home from work. He stopped drinking with his friends. It was a complete 180, at least for a while. The issue started to arise when every little thing would trigger a panic attack. He couldn't hang out with his friends without me freaking out. He began drinking with his friends again, maybe a few weeks later. One night, he wasn't home by the time he told me he would be home, and I just broke. He would do something that would trigger me, whether it be drinking with his friends or the occasional YouTube short I would see in his watch history of some swimsuit model. I would scream at him because I wanted him to feel exactly how I felt. I think marriage counseling eventually helped a lot. I finally got my own therapist. She was my best friend. I still text her to this day. I didn't have any friends where we lived. He worked with his friends every day, and every weekend they would all party. I didn't have anyone. My friends and family were back home. I'm shy and have really bad social anxiety, and I've always had trouble making friends because I can't seem to ever open my mouth when there's more than 3 people in the room. Whenever he would leave to go anywhere, I felt so alone. I think at 22, our marriage really started improving again. We went on vacation together and were able to work through a lot of issues, and we were able to communicate things we were feeling, and it was amazing. We both felt so heard, and we were able to find happy mediums on issues and relayed boundaries that each of us respected. I was 23 when I moved home a few months before his contract ended. He tied up his loose ends on the house and work, and he moved back home with me. He tried working a night shift blue-collar job, making good money, even more than he made in the military, but he hated it. He hated everything about it. He missed his friends and his job. His friends were his family. This was the first time I'd ever seen him truly depressed. 5 months later, he joined a different branch of the military. I didn't want him to. I wanted him to stay and have a normal life with me. I wanted to work normal jobs and have a family, but he doesn't. He said that he doesn't even want a family. I had started nursing school, and my best friend, whom I hardly ever get to see, had a baby. I finally had a group of friends and family that I was able to hang out with every week. He left and got stationed in a different state, but only about 600 miles away this time. Far, but drivable. He came home for a visit after only a week of being there. We were doing good at this point, texting and calling a lot. A little over a month ago, he left to go across the country for a 6-week exercise in the desert. He didn't have his phone for most of it, but he was able to text me once over a week ago. He didn't text again after that until I messaged him, letting him know that a pet of mine had passed. He replied immediately. I realized that he's had his phone, he just hasn't been talking to me. Yesterday, he texted me in the morning, letting me know that he was going to spend an upcoming holiday with an old military friend from his previous branch, and then the holiday after that, he wanted to go see his extended family in a different state. We've talked a lot since then, not about anything good. I've asked why he's pushing me away, and he said he's focusing on his goals. I said I felt like I was being put on the back burner until he was ready to acknowledge me and our marriage, and I tried to tell him that he didn't have to be alone and that I would support him. He said, "You can't though. You say you can, but you didn't support college or the CIA, so I kind of felt I should do this alone and get rid of some of the negativity." And I realized he was right. He brought up college when we were about 21, maybe 22, and I actually scoffed at him because I didn't realize he was being serious. I didn't believe he could do something like that. He barely graduated high school. He went to 4 different high schools total, never getting above a 1.5 GPA. I tried doing his homework to keep him afloat, but he didn't care. I even got him enrolled in the same online academy that I attended, due to public school not fitting around my athletic schedule. And I had to do every class and every assignment for him because he would never do them. He ended up graduating from what you would call an alternative high school. After telling me he wanted to go to college, he then told me he was going to join the CIA. This was just unfathomable to me. I didn't know what to do because he wanted my support, but I also didn't want to lie to him and tell him that I believed in him. I guess I still don't. And I feel awful, and I can't imagine the feeling of your spouse not supporting you unconditionally. I don't know how to support him in something I just don't think that he can do. And now we're here. Neither of us want a divorce. Both of us know our relationship hasn't been the best. We both don't know what to do. I would feel so lost and empty without him. I've known him for more than half of my life. Our personalities are formed around each other. We talk the same and we have the same mannerisms. We experienced growing up together and became adults together. I just want to add that these experiences I've listed were the worst times. We've had amazing experiences together too. We have so much fun together. He makes me laugh more than anyone else can. He knows everything about me and has been there for every important moment in my life. I'm absolutely terrified of the future. I'm scared to tell my family if we get a divorce. I don't want to be another statistic. I know we got married young. I know we are a military family. I know that. I know that most of these marriages ended in divorce, but I really thought we were different. I don't want to start over. I'm almost 24, and I know that's still considered young, but I've known him for 14 years. I thought we would have started thinking about having a family together by now. He just wants to focus on his career and says he doesn't even think that he wants to have a family. I don't know what to do anymore. Update. Someone said I must be exhausting to be around if I tell my friends and family all this. Well, you'll be happy to know that no one knows. I have never told any of my friends and family even a percentage of what has happened. That's why I ended up writing an epic. I wanted someone to know everything and tell me what to do because my brain has become this convoluted mess. I've made my husband out to be this strong, loving, endearing, charismatic provider, and I know why. I've spent my entire life wanting to be the best at everything. My dad's favorite thing he used to say to me every day after practice was, "Second place is just the first loser," and I held on to that. I was the best. I was the best at school. I ranked number 1 out of my high school class of over 700 people. I have hundreds of medals and trophies. I did take second place at nationals one year. Even though that didn't feel like an accomplishment to me, I know it should be. But after dropping out of college and leaving behind a full-ride athletic and academic scholarship, I wanted it to be worth something. I never told anyone I left because I hated it and couldn't deal with it. I told everyone I got married and he joined the Marines and I wanted to support him. I didn't want anyone to realize that I couldn't hack it. I wanted it to be worth it. And if I had marriage problems or if I got divorced, it would have just been for nothing. I would have lost again, and I can't lose. Many have asked if I want to live the rest of my life like this. Of course I don't. Who would? Why did I stay even after the first time? Well, starving people will eat anything. I have actually read every single comment, even the hurtful ones. Goodness, you guys are jerks, but I needed it. I needed over 1,000 people telling me I'm a blind idiot to realize that marriage isn't supposed to be like this and that I deserve better because I do. And for all of those saying I'm not going to leave because I haven't yet, I'll prove you wrong. I'm not going back anymore. I'm not going to settle. I had heard the phrase sunk cost fallacy, but I didn't know what it meant. Now I do. Update 1 year later. I filed for divorce probably within 48 hours of making that post. Papers were signed a month later. Divorce was finalized 2 months after that. It was completely uncontested. We shared no assets and we don't have any kids yet, thank goodness. It was actually a lot easier than I expected it to be. Honestly, the hardest part was telling my family, especially my mom. Everyone loved him so much because I, unfortunately, made him out to be so perfect. It was pretty much a slap to the face for her to find out, and I felt awful. She cried for days, but she was so supportive of me. Everyone was so supportive of me. I turned 25 soon. I decided to get my nurse practitioner's license, so that's the track I'm on right now. I've made an incredible amount of friends this year. If I'm not working, I'm out having fun. I'm always doing something fun every day. I've truly begun to find myself. I really didn't realize what a horrendous situation I was in, at least not until after I made that initial post and received so many eye-opening comments. Lots of people were right though. I did already know the answer to my question. It's actually kind of weird thinking about it. It doesn't even feel real. We don't even speak anymore. We haven't really spoken much since December. One of the last interactions we had, he was upset about the divorce and regretted it, and then he proceeded to threaten that he would hurt anyone that I dated in the future. Yes, it's documented to the best of my ability. I don't think he would ever actually do anything like that. He hasn't even been back in the state this year. I think he's been too busy. Last I heard through the grapevine, he got drunk, hooked up with someone, and got some girl pregnant. She wants to keep the baby, but he doesn't. I think she even took a brick to his car and smashed it. If I could give him one last piece of advice, it would be to start a savings account for this poor kid's future therapy bills, and to ask him if he ever realized that almost all of his monumental life mistakes have been committed under the influence of alcohol. But alas, it isn't my problem. He will never hear from me again, and I can say that with complete happiness and confidence. Karen demands to put a tracker on my phone. I'm 28, female. My life has not turned out the way I wanted it to. I still live at home with my parents who are extremely controlling. All my friends have left the country, and so I'm on my own a lot. Most of my time is spent at home, at work, or going on solo walks. I don't drink, I don't go to the gym or play sports anymore. I don't have hobbies outside the house. I haven't dated anyone for 7 years. All in all, a very uninteresting life. My one solace is being outdoors in nature and walking. My parents aren't happy with this. They think I shouldn't go out on walks by myself because it's dangerous, in their words. I knew it would be better to ease their concerns if I had someone to go on walks with me, but I don't. My mom has been trying to get me to put "share my location" on my phone with her for years. I understand that she worries about my safety. However, the big problem for me is I know it's not just about my safety. She'll use it to become my stalker. I know this because she has my dad share his location with her and vice versa. She sits and stares at her screen and will say things like, "Oh, your father just left tennis. Oh, your father has just arrived at work. Oh, your father is leaving the pub." Now, I don't have anything to hide, but it is one boundary that I've held to, and I've been so proud of myself for not caving. Today, I decided I'd take a trip up the coast and go for a walk along the sea. I told my parents about my plans at 10:30 a.m. My mom asked that I call her and keep in touch. Once I got there, 2 p.m., I called her and told her where I was. I also told her what walk and route I would be taking. I didn't tell her when I would be home, but she also didn't ask. I also didn't message to say I was on my way home. My parents were furious when I arrived back, 8 p.m. My dad told me that I no longer had a say and that it was mandatory for me to have a tracker on my phone. I told him that I had done everything asked of me. I had called, explained where I was going, etc. I also said they could have called me if they were that concerned about my whereabouts. So as a result, I've been punished. The car that I drive is technically my dad's, and so he has taken the keys away. He says that I can buy my own car or grant them access to my tracking information. They said they would never do this to me, hold the fact that they bought the car over my head. Also, it makes no sense for me to buy a new car now. I'm at the final stage of a graduate recruitment process, and if I'm successful, I'll be moving to London in September. However, I need to survive between now and then, and without a car, the little life I have is impossible. So, am I the jerk for refusing to let them put a tracker on my phone when their concern is my safety? Edit. My dad hasn't told me that he has taken the keys. I've got a work event today, and he plans for me to not find them when I need to go. Your parents are incredibly toxic, but you may need to put up with this until you can get out. OP. I'm in my bedroom with my door closed, and my dad just walked past and said, "Stupid jerk," at my door. Trying not to cry that my wonderful day has been ruined, it does feel toxic. Can you take public transport? OP. Yes, I can, but the public transport system here is not very good. My work is a 10-minute drive away, but via public transport it would take me an hour. I do work from home most days though, so that is something. I could also go to parks that are within walking distance for some outdoors. Do you pay to live there? OP: I only pay a nominal amount of £200 a month as per my dad's request. I do feel guilty about it as I know people normally pay a lot more than that. Does your dad know that your mom stalks him? Yes, he does, and he doesn't seem to mind. Do they pay for your phone? They don't pay for my phone, though the car is theirs. Unfortunately, the car I bought had an engine failure. I couldn't afford to just buy another car, so this was the compromise solution. I had actually been considering asking to buy the car from them, but it now seems silly, especially with the London move potentially happening and this drama. Update: things were very frosty the next couple of days. My mom eventually came to me and said that she was going to address the elephant in the room. She said that she was very disappointed in me, but as I didn't care about her, she will just have to live without it, the tracker on my phone. I think she expected me to cave at that point, but I didn't. I said, "Thank you for understanding," and that was it. The car keys were returned to the drawer and nothing more was said about it from anyone, including my dad. To this day, I have no idea why the 180-degree flip happened. Although you have all helped me realize that I have an unhealthy codependent relationship with my parents, I think it will just take time to set boundaries and learn how to be my own person. I still love them a lot, and I know they love me too, even though we aren't the type of family that says so. Which leads me to my other news. I got the job in London. I've officially moved out and I'm living there now. It still feels surreal. I know it's going to take some time to get used to living independently, but I'm ready to be my own person and learn how to do things on my own. Honestly, I had given up hope that this day would ever get here. I feel so much happier and can genuinely say that I'm proud of myself. If anyone has any tips for living away from home for the first time, please let me know. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.